Hey guys! So we are here today to do a casual check-in on all the plants I've imported so far this year. I just wanted to share with you what's working, what's not, kind of a little bit of a backstory on how I've been acclimating them so far. I haven't been doing a ton of importing for the last year to 2 years. Especially in the last year, I've been making a very conscious effort to be very mindful of what I'm bringing into my house, especially in terms of plants, because being a part of a plant community with plant friends and stuff, you don't even realize how many plants are just like thrown at each other all the time, and without consciously going out and buying plants, you can accumulate quite a vast quantity of plants. So with all the decluttering I've been doing in my life in the last year, I've been making it a point to be very specific about what I bring into my house. So the plants that I'm consciously buying and importing, I want to make sure that I really like it. So I really sit with the idea of owning a plant for much longer than I used to. I'm not like just frenzy buying anymore. I don't even know how many plants I have to show you. Sorry about that. In my list, and I'm gonna be going through my tent as I go, but in my list I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there might be more, but I think we're gonna max out at maybe like a dozen or so. So I thought what I would do is go through them in chronological order from when I obtained them, and then we'll end up with my most recent imports. So at the beginning of the year, I'm calling this an import because technically it came across the border, but these were plants from Amanda. So it didn't get the same like treatment that an import plant normally would if they're going through phyto and stuff like that. And like they're not getting like aggressive root treatments and things. So it's not quite the same, but you know, it came from a different country. So Amanda, aka Bunny, sent Charmaine and I a beautiful box of treasures when Charmaine was at home visiting her family over Christmas in California, because Amanda, just as a reminder, does not ship outside of the US. So we got a box of plants. We slapped each other with tortillas in order to fairly divide up these plants. All right, so in the box was a lot of Anthuriums as usual, because that's the majority of Amanda's collection, but also some non-Anthuriums. So starting off with one of the most beautiful Anthuriums I've had the pleasure to own in recent memory. This is a hybrid of Anthurium Spider Bess, which is Ghost Dad's very spidery Bessier Af. I'm gonna throw in a photo right here. It's just a very round, very wide, aggressive, ferocious looking Bessier Af, and it is crossed with a Papillolamnum Ralphinum for Sherman. A Ralphinum crossed with a Fort Sherman. So when it came in, it was these 3 leaves here. This was the newest leaf. And then this leaf was the first leaf grown in my care. And then this is the newest leaf. It's so pretty. I wish the camera would pick it up, but maybe it is kind of picking it up. It has a very holographic, purpley blue bruisey color to it. Isn't it so stunning? Like when I look at this plant right now, I see a lot of Bessier Af, like that color, the sinus and the venation, but it also has like a more muted, subtle darkness that comes from the Pappy. I mean, at least that's what it looks like to me so far. And I'm really excited to see this grow bigger, and then I'll be able to chop it and give half back to Charmaine, which is always the plan with all of our Amanda plants. So it was planted in tree fern fiber mix. So whenever I say tree fern fiber, it's always tree fern fiber mixed with my pond mix. So my pond is Lechuza pond, perlite, and orchiata. Like I don't really make a custom like amendment for this. I just take my pond bin and just like take a few scoops and put it into the tree fern fiber whenever I'm preparing the tree fern fiber. So it is tree fern fiber with a lot of rocky amendments inside. And we got some decent roots over the past 4 months, and it lives just down here in my tent, just on the bottom level here with all my other baby Anthuriums. And I'm just very, very smitten with this plant right now. So yeah, that one is doing super well. Another Anthurium in that shipment was this, which is a Magnificum crossed with a Canailens, and I was so excited to grow this. It came as just a leafless stump. It had an activated growth point. So the first leaf that grew in my care is this one. It is so round. Not sure what this is. It might have been acclimation stress, like from coming out of the bin, maybe, because the roots do look like decent in here. I don't see root rot or anything. And then The newest leaf just came out and it's looking a little bit more veiny. It looks like it's gonna be a little bit more, just have more canile lens venation. But again, it is like still really, really round and puffy and just chubby and just freaking so cute. So I'm gonna try to look for Amanda's Magcuna. It's so beautiful. That canile lens venation is so like, it's so simple and so clean and so minimal, but like very thin and that really round shape. And the emergent leaves always have that very like holographic, iridescent kind of color to it. So I'm really happy that this hybrid took on some of those traits, because this is a stem cutting of her plant, so it should eventually look just like hers. Yeah, so this one is also planted in tree fern with the pond stuff. It rooted quite well, and this was also acclimated inside of a IKEA bin with a lid, so it was like 100% humidity, lower light. So I brought it into the tent so that it could get higher light and grow a little bit faster and still be in high humidity, because part of the stem is exposed, so I didn't want those like fresh roots to be dying off. It shouldn't take too long to size up because it is a stem cutting and it's not grown from seed. The seed grown Anthuriums will kind of take a little bit longer to mature, but the stem cutting ones should kind of get to a larger size a little bit quicker. So you know how when Anthuriums like are grown from seed, they're really, really baby, they basically look like this. So when this was coming out, it looked a lot like this. It just got a little bit bigger, but this one has more coloration to it. It has like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to pick that up, but it has like red margins, and the whole emergent leaf just looks, it just has color to it. It didn't look just like plain green like this one. So that one's also doing good. Included in that shipment was a bunch of seeds, and I think in the movie, in the video, we didn't know what the seeds were, or we weren't 100% sure. So anyways, so there were 2 seeds, and these were Amanda's hybrids. They were seeds that she hadn't released yet for sale. So the first one is this one. This is Anthurium obtusum narrowform. I'll pop a photo here of what her plant looks like. So far it looks like microgreens, but they are growing. It's also potted in that tree fern mix. Lauren also has this plant. I've seen it at her shop, and it basically looks like this as well. So it's gonna be a while before it kind of starts to get length and size. If you've ever grown Vitarfolium from seed or any of these like strap leaf Anthuriums, it takes a long time for them to get like longer leaves. They look like little, kind of like little spears for quite a long time, and they can get really like long and leggy and lanky. So it's gonna be a long road with this before I get like a plant that looks like hers, but it's worth it. I think I'm gonna really like this one. The other seed, so we got, I think 4 seeds of this. I only have 1 plant of it. I think 1 seed didn't germinate, and then 1 went to Charmaine, and then 1 went to Jing. This is a Anthurium luxurians crossed with a Ralph Linum Port Sherman, which I am so excited to grow, because I mean, I love Lux hybrids, but this one in particular should be a little bit more elongated than my other Lux hybrids, which are quite round. So I have Lux hybrids crossed with Crystallinum, Crystal Mag, and also Mag. One of my Mag Luxes in particular is super round. So this one, I'm excited to see if it will be like a little bit more narrow and hopefully a little bit more dark. I just can't say no to a good luxuriance hybrid. I just love luxuriance so much. This one probably should be bigger than it actually is, because it has been growing in the bin, so it hasn't been getting as much light. So I've just recently moved it in here, so it should get a little bit more light and grow a little bit faster. With seedlings, it's best to give them like a little bit more light, get them a little bit closer to grow lights so that they don't grow super leggy, and they have the potential to grow super fast. You just got to give them light. A lot of people assume that you have to wait quite a long time to feed Anthurium babies, like little seedlings, because people are afraid that the salts in the fertilizer will burn something so tiny, something so delicate. In my experience, and from what I'm reading from other people's experience, so like take all this with a grain of salt. Once the seed grows its first leaf and it's working on its second, you can start to feed it like a very diluted mix, because they are growing quite fast, like in relation to something like more of a medium to more mature sized Anthuriums. They take longer between leaves to form, but these can be growing leaves like every other week. So if you don't feed it, you can get like really chlorotic looking like pale babies. So definitely be feeding them. If you're scared of burning these little tiny little sprouts, then just make sure that you're diluting enough, but don't give it nothing, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so there's that. So the last Anthurium is this beautiful beast. This one is a Papport, and it's doing so great. It still lives inside the import bin. Not that it needs to, it's just that I haven't found a good place for it yet. Very soon though, I'll be getting it out of the bin because it's definitely ready. We don't have a ton of roots, but we have some new ones forming at the top. There very well may be roots like near to the middle of the substrate. I just can't see them. It's also in the tree fern mix, and in my care, it has grown 2 leaves. I think this leaf was already emerged. If my memory serves me correctly, this leaf was growing when I first got it. And then this is the newest leaf to grow in my care, and it's still quite floppy. Just a few days ago, it was still quite like bronzy, orangey, reddy. So it's gonna get a little bit bigger. I don't think by a huge ton, but it will get a little bit bigger, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful plant. It's not a very thick-leafed Anthurium. It's a little bit thinner, but it's got a very beautiful, like, not velvety, but more like silicone, luxurious kind of feeling. I can't even make a good comparison to this texture, but it is really nice, just very, very satisfying to feel, but it is not a really thick leaf. I will say that. But yeah, this one is ready to move out, and it's been doing really well. Essentially what I'm trying to do, and I'm just procrastinating because I have a light already, but I need to add a light right here on this shelf so that this shelf is a little bit more lit, because right now it only gets like a light. You see there's a light right here that's pointing diagonally into the tent, and it gets reflection from the front door of the tent, but not as much light as what's the plants down here are getting. So I just need to add a light, and then this shelf will be quite a bit more lit, and this plant will move into that shelf. So non-anthuriums, we have this prank of a plant. This is a Syngonium Wendlandii. I keep wanting to say it's a Rayi, but this is a Wendlandii. So obviously it's doing fine because it's a Syngonium. They're really hardy. It's grown a few leaves in my care, maybe like 3 or 4. And it's just potted in by my usual pond mix. So pond Perlite orchiata. Sometimes there's like leca in here. Just like random leca that I rinse and just like I have nowhere to put it. So I just throw it into my pond mix. So I don't hate this plant. I don't like Syngoniums. I don't like arrowhead Syngoniums. If I was to make an exception for a Syngonium, it'd probably be this one. Like, I don't know if this will make sense to anyone, but I don't like the petioles of Syngoniums. They're kind of like just messy looking. Do you know what I mean? Like, they just don't have that clean petiole look that like philodendrons have. It just, I don't know, it looks a little bit messy to me. But I'm keeping this Syngonium and I'm growing it because, I mean, it comes from a dear friend. And also, I don't mind this plant because it's kind of like dark and velvety. It's growing right now inside a little exo. So I used to have a small exo over on this side of the room with all my other exos. So it's a 18 by 18 by 24 tall. So that exo now lives, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like literally right there. That one just got a grow light, and I'm putting plants there that I don't really know what to do with, but I want it to have a nice growing conditions. So this one lives in there and it's doing fine. It's doing just fine. This one is, I always forget. This one's the hybrid. It's the Philodendron Hybrid that Amanda has done herself, which is very impressive. So it's either one of these 2 hybrids. It's either Philodendron Scott Morianum crossed with 69686 or Scott Morianum and Gloriosum. She's not sure yet, but by the look of this plant, I'm gonna venture a guess and say 69686 as the other parent, because I don't see Gloriosum in this. Like, not even in the slightest. It doesn't have any sort of the Gloriosum venation. It doesn't have like any of the pink that comes out with a Gloriosum leaf. The margins are fully green. The petioles, there's no striations. It's like, it's just a super, super green plant. So I think it's gonna have quite interesting leaf shape when it gets bigger. Her Scott Morianum looks really, really cool. It looks very much like a Philodendron maximum. But yeah, this one recently came out of that bin. It didn't really need to be in there, truth be told, but it lived in there, and I'm trying to see, it's got little roots. It's got not a ton of roots, but these very like baby hair looking roots. I'm trying to see if I can show you. There's a hint of a root here, but now it lives inside that small exo where the Syngonium lives. Another prank, we got a bunch of varicosum sticks from Amanda, and like it's still quite small. I planted them just like straight up like this inside the tree fern fiber mix, and just kind of like let it do its thing inside of the bin. It's rooted here. I'm trying to see if this one here is rooted. I don't really see, it's rooted, but I don't see a ton of roots, but obviously both of them are growing. And I haven't gotten it into highlight. Like if I had put it under like grow lights, very close to grow lights, it would definitely have leaves by now. But also at the same time, I'm not trying to grow a big giant varicosum because I know they're beautiful plants. I don't know that they're the philodendron for me, and I'm not trying to be ungrateful because it was a beautiful gift from Amanda, and if it was anybody else I would be like, no thank you. It is truly because of my love for Amanda that I'm growing this plant. I know she really likes varicosum and she really wanted us to give it a try, and I'm not like, I'm definitely giving it a try. I'm giving it good conditions and everything. So this now lives inside my tent, and I'll just see what happens with it. But probably when these two grow up, I'm not going to separate them into separate pots. I'm going to grow them together at the same pole. We'll get hopefully a nice varicosum out of it. But yeah, that one's doing okay. Last one from Amanda, and I never know how to say this name, so I'm going to put it right here. This is a really cool Airoid from Africa with adorable little bunny lobes. So this is the only leaf to ever grow in my care. It used to have like another leaf. It died off just kind of recently. So this leaf was like starting to grow, like that growth point was active when I first got it, and it took a really long time for it to come out. So it hasn't been out of the bin for too long. I don't see a lot of roots on it, and it being an African Airoid, I'm assuming it's not gonna want the level of humidity that like a lot of my Airoids will want. So I moved it into that exo, the little exo, because it is a lower humidity exo, and I'll probably put a second grow light on top of it just to give those plants a little bit more light. But like, it's so freaking cute. I'm so obsessed with this leaf shape. Like, I totally understand why Charmaine's like trying to get everybody on board with this plant, because, or like not this plant in particular, but just plants with this type of Donnie Darko shape. It looks like it could be like a Sanrio character, and this one will get silvery. Like this one, this leaf in particular doesn't really have any silver, but as the leaves get bigger and the plant matures, it will get like kind of silvery markings over it. But yeah, this one is in tree fern as well. I'm not sure if that's what it wants. I might move it to pond, I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna give it a little bit drier conditions and higher light and see what it does, because so far I don't really see much root growth. It's just kind of pushing leaves. And yeah, I very much love this plant, very, very much. And I'm very glad that this plant was sent because of Charmaine's love for this plant, because I wasn't really super on board with it. I was just kind of like, yeah, that's cute, but I wasn't really expressing the desire for the plant. But now that I have it, I get it. I totally get it. All right, so that is the Amanda plants. I may have forgotten one here or there. When I was looking at my tent, I'm pretty sure I got all of them. So it should go without saying that I'm extremely grateful for Amanda's friendship, and I don't know what we did to deserve her, but somehow she's in our lives, and I'm very thankful. So moving on to the next import. 2 months ago, we did an import from Tropicals Plants, or Tropicals Equiflora. I only had one plant on the order, but I also picked up one more plant at the pop-up. So in total, we have 2 plants. I'm gonna start off with the plant that I actually ordered. So it looks like this now. This is an Elaphoglossum metallicum, and I'm happy to see that more people are wanting this plant now. I think it was on a few people's radars, that the people that are kind of into more interesting weirdo plants. And then lately I've been seeing people like asking for this because there is another pop-up happening at Northern Tropicals in a couple weeks time. So anyways, we got two. Me and Charmaine, we each got one. One came in looking like hot garbage, so it's this one. And then one came in looking like just out of a magazine, so beautiful. I volunteered to take this one because I don't have experience with Elaphoglossums, and I have very, very little experience with ferns in general. So I figured that if any one of us has the energy, the thoroughness to make sure that this plant thrives, it's her and not me. Just because I'm not home as much as she is, and like my plant care is a lot more kind of lazy and haphazard on the best of days. So I took this one and I was just hoping and praying that it will grow something. So far it has not. It's lost one of the leaves. The other leaf was quite a lot more beat up than this one when it first arrived. So that one is long gone. When I got it, I chopped some like really like suspiciously rotty stem off. So the stem was like shorter. I pretty much got rid of all the roots. People were telling me that, you know, that's what the roots are supposed to look like. I'm not super sure that they were alive, but I'm also not super sure they were dead. But in any case, I chopped them all off. In my mind, I knew that fern roots were like wiry, black and thin and kind of really just ugly roots. They're not like that, those juicy white roots, because I've seen them on my Microsorum thailandicum, but I still thought they were dead. You know what I mean? Like when you feel something and it's just kind of like has no give to it and it just snaps off with no pressure. It didn't feel to me like that's what roots should look like. So a lot of people were saying that I probably should have left them on. Yeah, you might be right, but I removed them all. I planted it in tree fern fiber, and I kept it wetter overall just because it's a fern. That's just my thought process. So we're gonna take the stem out and see what's happening in here. Woo! Ah, okay. So we don't have roots, but we do have growth. Is that going to be a root or is that going to be a leaf? I don't really know. There's two here, so 1, 2, and then over on this side, there's another one. So something is certainly happening, just not sure what. Like this leaf seems like it's still holding on strong despite whatever this is. Like I think this is cold damage, but yeah, something is happening. The stem feels really, really like rock hard and firm. So, right, maybe once I get into higher light, it will start to do something more substantial. We'll plant you back into the tree fern fiber now. Like kind of unrelated, but another finicky plant that I'm really interested in importing because I can't really find this locally is a Huperzia. What's it called? Equigenera just recently had a pop-up here in Vancouver this past weekend, and I didn't go because I was busy, and also like there is admission to get in. Not that I don't think that admission should be happening, because this one happened at a botanical garden, and I fully support them charging admission. I shouldn't be spending money on things like that right now. So I didn't go, but they had Huperzia there, and like looking at the photos, I was very jealous, but I also don't know that I can definitely keep one alive. So that's definitely on my radar. Anyways, the next plant that we imported is this Anthurium Philodendron. It's doing really well. It's doing super well. It was planted in tree fern. As you can see, roots are doing super good. It probably needs a water soonish. This one recently got moved out of the bin and into one of my exos. So the same exo where my old Philodendron, my original Philodendron used to live, it's closer to a grow light, and this one leaf got really mad when it got moved out. But it's fine. The whole plant is fine. It is actively pushing a leaf, and I'm so happy that it's super narrow as well, and it's like, it's a good size. Like the newest leaf before that would have been, oh, I guess it would have been this one. Size wise, because it is super floppy still, it is going to get bigger than the older leaves. And yeah, this is one of the best imports I've done in such a long time. I'm so glad that we were able to each pick one up. So me, Charmaine, and Jing all got a really narrow form, and the only person who actually imported one was Charmaine. So she pre-ordered one, and then me and Jing each grabbed one of the narrow ones at the pop-up. They didn't really have too many narrow ones. I think there were like one or two more after we picked ours up. But yeah, I was not at all one bit worried about this plant after having my Philodendron for so long, and that import process, like the acclimation process, being really just smooth and easy and fuss free. And then I also rooted another one for Charmaine and Tree Fern. I did not worry for 1 second that this plant was gonna root just fine. And it rooted so fast and so vigorously. Like, they root really fast, and there's just such an easygoing Anthurium. And just by the way it looks, you would think that it's not that easygoing, but it really is. So I plan on growing this in Tree Fern, like this Tree Fern mix, for the foreseeable future. It seems to really like this substrate, like looking at my original Philodendron. The only thing is once it gets a little bit more rooted, I think I'll probably transfer it to like just a nicer vessel, because this is just a coffee cup, and get a little bit of a leca layer on the bottom just for insurance purposes, because I don't really want to rot this plant by accident. I kind of already have like a tried and true substrate and like pot set up for this, so I don't really have to think too much about it. So yeah, this one is doing really well. If you're on the fence about importing Anthuriums, what I will say is Anthuriums ship in general better than Philodendrons. They tend to have much thicker roots, which holds up to like the root treatment and the shipping a little bit better than Philodendrons. Like, I pretty much, with Philodendrons, I kind of assume I'm going to be rooting them like completely from scratch. With Anthuriums, I'm more likely to keep the existing roots. And they also come in looking a lot better, a lot less like wilted and like melted and browning than Philodendrons. So barring like the very finicky ones like Splendidum or Debilis, Anthuriums are quite a lot better shipping wise than Philodendrons. So I think this would probably be a really good one to start with if you're importing for the first time. The last plant is one that we imported just a few weeks ago. I'm still a little bit starstruck looking at this plant. Like, when I think about this plant being in my possession, I get a little bit nauseous because I'm so excited. So this is the Monstera Burleya Flame. So I still have both pieces. So if you didn't watch the vlog where we imported this plant, this is one plant. It's going to be cut in two. The top half is going to be for Charmaine, the bottom half is going to be for me. We're both a little bit petrified of killing this plant, so we're gonna wait until we have like quite a few more roots before chopping it. So both of us wanted our cuttings to be rooted in tree fern fiber, so that's what I did. I'm rooting the bottom aerial root in here and the top aerial root in here. I also made sure that there was great white in the substrate, and while we did get roots on the plant, we had a big fuzzy root coming from the top, and then I had like secondary roots growing from the bottom. There was also rot happening at the same time, so I recently had to get them both out and like kind of chop off all the rot, but I was seeing that like other roots were kind of branching off of the main root, so there's something happening here, just not enough for me to chop it yet. Like, for some people it should be enough, but for us, we were just a little bit too scaredy cat to do it. So recently I got it under higher light. So it was originally in this corner of the tent, so it had light but not a ton. So again, it only has light from this like corner bar. So after chopping off the raw, I got it into higher light just from seeing the ones at the shop. So Lauren's still holding on to some for like maybe in a few more days. She's gonna be shipping them out to all the pre-order people. They're not under strong lights, but they are very close to the lights, and they're rooting so much faster than this one is. So I bumped the light in the hopes of just kind of speeding up the process. I'm trying to remember who she was talking about, but somebody else who owns this plant was telling Lauren that it gets so much light, like they blast theirs with light and it does not get any light burn. So that's really good to know. But anyway, a few weeks in, it still looks okay, although the very lowest leaf is starting to go. So you can see it is starting to yellow, which is okay. This one is still looking pretty good. I'll be pretty sad if I lose both of the bottom leaves, to be honest, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to think about it. This plant honestly gets like very mixed reviews in terms of easiness. A lot of people say it's just kind of like so hardy, bomb proof, and then some people will say that they're really finicky. So I think it really depends. I think we already got a very healthy specimen to begin with. But yeah, if you missed out on this pre-order, there is a chance that Lauren will do another one with this supplier. So definitely keep an eye out. I'll make sure that I mention it to you guys if she does do another pre-order, because this one was so successful and I think people are wanting to get in on the pre-order. I think especially seeing like the health of the plants that came in and also the size that they were. Like this is a very generous small. You know what I mean? It's not like a single leaf cutting. So if you're new to importing and you're not sure where to start with Ecuagenera or tropicals. And I'm gonna tell you like kind of like my pros and cons for those two, like trying to decide who to import from. So both of them you don't require an Ecuador import license from, because they have like representatives in all the countries that they export to. So they'll do like orchid shows in different countries in like bigger cities. Not every city, obviously. So what those representatives do within the cities is that they receive the, sorry, my phone's going off. What those representatives do is they'll receive the pre-order plants for the people, and then if you're outside of the city, they'll just repackage and then ship it on to you. So the process is the same for both. The process to pre-order is also the same. So in the past, what you would do is email them the pre-order list, but now they just want you to go on their website, fill your cart with the plants you want and pay for it, and just tell them where you're picking it up from. There is a charge to pick it up at the pop-up, like per plant. I think it's around $2 per plant. It's basically to cover shipping and like kind of administrative fees. It's nothing crazy, although I have heard in certain instances where the price per plant is kind of like inconsistent. Don't quote me on that, but what I understand is that it's like about $2 per plant for shipping. And then I read this comment from somebody because they were advertising this orchid show and like get your pre-orders in and stuff, and then someone was like, why am I paying for shipping if I'm picking it up at the show? How do you think they're getting it from Ecuador to Canada? Anyways, pros and cons of tropicals versus Ecuagenera, because I've imported from both of them. I think I've probably done a few more imports through tropicals, but I've done numerous ones with both. And what I will say is that tropicals seems to have less variety. So when the plant first kind of arrives to the market, it seems to be available in Ecuagenera first. That's just kind of in my memory. I don't really have like hard receipts and stuff to prove that, but I think when a plant is kind of like new to the market, Ecuagenera seems to have it before tropicals, but overall they have a lot of the same plants. And I've heard through the grapevine that Gilberto and Ivan kind of share inventory on certain things. Some people argue that Ecuagenera tends to have bigger plants than tropicals. I really think it depends on the demand for the plant. So if one import the plants were humongous, that's not to say the next import the plants are going to be humongous. Not that humongous is always better when you're importing a plant, because the bigger the plant, the harder it is to acclimate. If you're going to do any sort of high humidity enclosure, it's much harder to find a spot for something freaking like massive. It's just much easier to find optimal conditions for like a medium-sized plant or a smaller plant. In terms of packaging, tropicals has Ecuagenera beat like by far. Ecuagenera, like they seem to give no shits about the condition that the plant arrives in. Like the way they package plants and the way they bend the leaves and everything, really, like it really is off-putting to somebody who's paying quite a bit of money for a plant. Where with tropicals, they tend to put a lot of polyfill around the leaves, and then they package it up with paper. And these are for the pre-order plants. For the ones that are going to be shown, like they were ordered for the pop-up show for people to see, it's wrapped in like clear plastic, because obviously they want buyers to be able to see what the plant looks like. But if you pre-order a plant, it's going to be packaged with polyfill, nice breathable paper with like holes in it. Ecuagenera is really hit or miss, but they do not put the kind of care into like wrapping the leaves that tropicals does. Like plain and simple, they just don't. Hopefully that changes, but with an Ecuagenera plant, just be prepared to have like quite a beat up looking plant when you get it. Lately, Tropicals has been sending all the plants in a pot in their like own kind of It looks like a cocoa fibery like moss mix. It's like a very finely chopped up. I compared it to couscous, but it's kind of a weird mix. In theory, you don't necessarily have to unpot it and like inspect the roots. If you could just trust that the roots look good, if the plant's looking like fairly healthy, fairly perky, you could just start to acclimate it in that pot. Whereas with Ecuagenera, and maybe they've changed this, but they come wrapped in moss, usually in like a plastic bag, which is very common with exporters. All in all, they should have pretty much the same inventory. The prices are not going to be identical, so sometimes one will have like one plant for a little bit more than what the other seller is selling it as. I think really the only major differences is when they're selling hybrids that they've hybridized themselves, and I'm mainly talking about Anthuriums. One plant that I've been after for the last 2 to 3 years. I saw this on the Tropicals Instagram so long ago. I've never seen them sell it, but it's called Anthurium crystallinum chocolate, and it is so freaking stunning. I've never seen that kind of venation on an Anthurium before. So there are like certain plants like that one may have one of the other, but overall their stock is very similar. And I'm really talking just about Airoids. Like, I really don't know the orchids, so like their orchids might be different. As it pertains to houseplants and Airoids in particular, I think it's very similar in terms of selection. It's just like, how are they going to be coming in? And I think I would trust tropicals a little bit more for a healthier plant and like less work in the acclimation process. But really, at the end of the day, both are good. I would definitely order from Ecuagenera again. I just tend to order more from tropicals these days because they work with Lauren. So because the pop-ups are happening at North Shore Tropicals, it's incentive for me to go and film and hang out with my friends and stuff. So I'm more leaning towards the tropical side, but that's not to say I wouldn't order from Ecuagenera, because I've gotten a lot of great plants from Ecuagenera. I just think that they really should do better on their packaging. I think that's it for this video. Looking at the duration, I didn't actually film for very long, so sorry for another short video. With my new work schedule, I am really trying to like make sure that I'm on top of things. So that means that there's going to be some shorter videos here and there, but I will try to do my best in making like longer videos as often as possible, because I know you guys do like the longer videos. If you are importing from either Tropicals or Ecuagenera in the near future, like in May, or if you just received an import from Ecuagenera, let me know what you got. Let me know if you found some like gems at the pop-ups that you weren't expecting to see or didn't know that they even carried. I don't have anything coming in or pre-ordered for the May Tropicals pop-up, but I obviously will be going there and see what they got. I will be filming at the pop-up, so this is not going to be next week's video. Possibly the one after is going to be the Tropicals pop-up at North Tropicals. We're going to do a live sale of the plants at the pop-up on the last day of the pop-up. So whatever is not picked up by like the in-person people, we're gonna live sale, I think, on Instagram. So if you're not following North Shore Tropicals, make sure you're following them, check their stories. Lauren will be posting information about that very soon. But I've never been part of a live sale before, so it should be fun. Anyways, that's all from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a like. Love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.